Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. Today we are going to design a scene which you can see on the screen. So without wasting any time, let's get started with today's class. First I will select the default cube, press X to delete it. After that I will press Shift plus A and add a plane from the mesh options. Then I will press the tab key to enter edit mode and scale the plane along the Y axis by pressing S and then Y. You can scale it according to the size you want for the table. After that I will add a solidify modifier from the modifier tab and set the thickness value according to how thick I want the table to be. Then I will apply the solidify modifier and add a bevel modifier. Next I will enter edit mode, press A to select whole object and set the bevel weight value to 1. I will also change the limit method from angle to weight and set the profile value to the maximum. Now I will set the segment value to 2 and then adjust the profile value to the required amount. I will keep the profile value at 1 here and then I will add a subdivision modifier and set the levels value to 2. Then I will go to the object mode, right click and choose shade smooth. In edit mode I will press S and Z to scale it slightly along the Z axis. By pressing Ctrl plus R, I will add an edge loop and move it slightly to one side. After that, I will switch to face select mode, select the face and press E to extrude it. Finally, I will press A to select the entire object and set the bevel weight value to the maximum. Now I will select this edge and use Ctrl plus B to bevel it, and during the bevel, I will add more edges using the scroll wheel. Next, I will select both of these edge loops and set the bevel weight value to the maximum again. I think the width of the table is too large, so I will switch to vertex select mode, enable X-ray mode, select these vertices and move them to the side, which will reduce the width. Now I will right click, go to the origin and set it to the origin to geometry. Then I will press Shift plus S and select selection to cursor. After that I will press Shift plus A, go to the mesh options and add a cube. This cube will be used to create a drawer for the table. I will adjust its scaling and placement. In edit mode, I will select these vertices and move them along the x-axis to position it accurately. Now I will apply a bevel modifier, go to edit mode, select everything and set the bevel weight to the maximum. I will set the segment value to 2, change the limit method to weight instead of angle and set the profile value to the maximum. After that, I will add a subdivision modifier and set the levels value to 2. In X-ray mode, I will select these vertices and move them slightly down along the Z-axis. Then in object mode, I will select both objects and move them up along the Z-axis so that they are placed above the grid. I will select this face and press I to inset it. I have done a small inset. Then I will press S to scale it down so that there is more space on the sides. Now I will press E to extrude and extrude this face toward the back. Into edit mode, select the entire geometry and set the bevel weight value to the maximum. Then I will select this face, press Shift plus D to duplicate it and press escape so that it duplicates in the same place. After that, I will press P, choose selection to separate the selected face and then move it here. Now I will press Ctrl plus R to add 3 edge loops, then switch to face select mode, select these 3 faces, press X and choose faces to delete the selected faces. After that, I will select this face, press E to extrude it and then select the entire geometry in edit mode and set the bevel weight to the maximum. Finally, I will move this object and place it in the desired position. Now I will press the tab key to enter edit mode, press Ctrl plus R to add an edge loop here and then press Ctrl plus B to bevel it. I will use the scroll wheel to reduce the number of segments in the bevel. After that, I will add another edge loop and bevel it again using Ctrl plus B. Now I will select these vertices and move them down along the z-axis, and then I will select the entire geometry and set the bevel weight to the maximum value. I had moved these vertices down too much, so I will move them slightly up. After that, I will duplicate this using Shift plus D, move it down and place it here. Then I will press Shift plus R twice to repeat this action twice. Now I will press Shift plus A to add a plane from the mesh options and move it above the table. I will scale it down a bit, then press R, Y and then 90 to rotate the plane 90 degrees along the y-axis. I want to create an LCD from this, so I will scale it accordingly. We can scale it according to the exact dimensions, but I will scale it based on the estimated because I am not creating a realistic scene. Now I will add a solidify modifier, set the required thickness value, and then apply the modifier. I will select the entire geometry in edit mode and set the bevel weight value to the maximum. Then I will add a bevel modifier from the modifier tab, select weight as the limit method and set the segments value to 2. After that, I will right click and click on shade smooth, and then I will add a subdivision modifier. I will set the shape value in the profile to the maximum. Now I will press Ctrl plus A to apply the transforms. Then I will select this face, press I to inset it and then E to extrude it inward. After that, I will select the entire geometry and set the bevel weight to the maximum. Now I will select this part and duplicate it, then separate it and press E to extrude it. In edit mode, I will select the entire geometry and set the bevel weight value to the maximum. I will also scale it down. Since the origin of this object is not in the center, I will undo the action, right click and set the origin of this object to the geometry. Now I will scale it down and place it here. Then I will select this face and move it along the x-axis to give this part some thickness. I will select this face and move it down along the z-axis up to this point. Then I will add an edge loop using Ctrl plus R and move it here. Now I will move this part a little higher. After that, I will select it again, go into edit mode, select this face and extrude it. Then I will select the entire geometry in edit mode and set the bevel weight to the maximum. Now I will adjust their positioning a bit. I will move these vertices a little backward and rotate the screen accordingly. Next, I will duplicate the screen and set the y-axis value to 0 in rotation. Then rotate it 90 degrees along the y-axis, actually minus 90 degrees. I will scale it down and place it on the table. From this, I will create a keyboard. I will go into X-ray mode to select these vertices. Then press S to scale down and press Shift plus Z to ensure it does not scale along the Z-axis, only scale along X and Y-axis. This will create a bit more space on the sides. Now I will duplicate this face using Shift plus D and press P to separate it. Then in edit mode, I will press Ctrl plus R and use the scroll wheel to add some edges on this side and some on the other side. Next, I will press slash key to enter isolate mode so I can focus only this object and work on it. In edit mode, I will select all the newly created edges and use Ctrl plus B to bevel them, but I will not add any new segments. This will create new faces. Now I will deselect everything except the faces created by the bevel. And I will delete those faces. Now in edit mode, I will select all these faces and press E to extrude them. Then I will select the entire geometry and input the required value for the bevel weight. Next, I will select these vertices and move them slightly upward along the z-axis. After that, I will delete these two buttons. To do that, I will hover the mouse over the button and press L to select the entire button. Then I will delete it. Then I will select this face of the button and move it forward, which will turn it into the space bar on the keyboard. After that, I will hover the mouse over this button and press L to select the entire button. Then I will delete it. Finally, I will select this face of the button and move it forward. Then I will select these two faces and move them along the y-axis. Now I will repeat the same steps on the other side. And rotate it slightly. The keyboard model will be ready after this. Now I will select this face, duplicate it using Shift plus D and separate it. Then I will move it and place it here. I will use this to design a mouse pad. I will extrude the face and then select the entire geometry in edit mode and set the bevel weight to maximum. I will scale it up. It went down because its origin is not at the center of the geometry. I will right click and choose the origin to geometry option. Then I will place it back on the table and I will scale it down along the z-axis to reduce its thickness. Now I will select this face, duplicate it and separate it. I will then apply the subdivision modifier that was added to it and rotate it 90 degrees along the z-axis. Next, I will select all the faces and extrude them and add a subdivision modifier. In edit mode, I will select this vertex and enable proportional editing and move it upward along the z-axis. Remember, the area of effect of proportional editing can be adjusted by increasing or decreasing it with the scroll wheel. And I will move this vertex slightly along the x-axis and then again move it slightly upward along the z-axis. Then in object mode, I will scale down the entire geometry along the y-axis. After that, I will select all the bottom vertices, press S, then Z, then 0 to align all the vertices along the z-axis. Proportional editing is enabled, so I will disable it first and then align the bottom vertices along the z-axis again. And this will complete the mouse model. Now to design the plant pot, I will add a cylinder and set its vertices value to 12. Then I will adjust its scaling and place it on the table. In edit mode, I will select the top face and scale it up slightly. After that, I will add a subdivision modifier. Then using Ctrl plus R, I will add an edge loop in the center and bevel it with Ctrl plus B. I will set the level value to 2 in the subdivision modifier. Now I will select the top face, press I and insert it. Now I will extrude it down and press I to insert it once more. In object mode, I will right click and select Shade Smooth. Here I will disable the viewport display icon for the modifier, which will hide the modifier's effect in the viewport. The last insect we made was too small, so I will select this face and move it down a bit. I will also move the edge loop down slightly and scale down this face. Now I will enable the modifier's viewport display option again. As you can see, the shape looks much better now. Now I will select this face loop, press Alt plus E and choose extrude along normals to extrude it. I will add an edge loop here. Lower these faces a bit and add another edge loop there. Then I will press the slash key to enter isolate mode. Select the bottom face, press I to insert it. The pot is now complete and I will place it on the required spot. Now I will duplicate this mouse, go into edit mode, select the bottom face, press P to separate them and delete the rest of the geometry. Now I will select this object, enter edit mode and move the vertices to create a leaf-like shape. My goal is to turn this object into a leaf. After shaping it to resemble a leaf, I will select these two edges, press Ctrl plus B to bevel them, and add an extra edge using the mouse scroll wheel. Next, I will move these edges down slightly. I will then add a solidify modifier and move it above the subdivision modifier. I will first increase the thickness value in the solidify modifier, setting the subdivision level to 2. And apply the modifier. Now I will select these vertices, press S, then X and 0 to align them along the x-axis. Next I will select the faces and extrude them. I will extrude them once more and then scale them down along the y-axis. After that, I will press Shift plus S and select cursor to selection to move the 3D cursor to the selected faces. Then I will right click and from origin from the options, I will select origin to 3D cursor to move the origin to the 3D cursor. Finally, I will select the edges and add bevel weight. After that, I will enable proportional editing in edit mode. Select these vertices and move them along the z-axis. Then I will select these vertices and move them upward along the z-axis to give the leaf a better shape. Now I will press Shift plus A to add a curve path, rotate it 90 degrees on the y-axis, scale it down in edit mode and move it to the center of the pot. I will select and move these points to create a curve shape. Then I will duplicate it, select this point, press Shift plus S to move the 3D cursor to the selected point. Right click to move the origin to 3D cursor and then rotate this curve path. I will also make some changes to this shape. Now I will go to the curve data and increase the value of depth in the geometry options. I will set this value according to my preference. Then I will select the last point, press Alt plus S to scale it down. First I will enable proportional editing and press Alt plus S to scale down. It will create a shape like this. Now I will right click and convert it to mesh. I will reset its position for the origin for the leaf. Now I will select this object and go to the particle system to create a new particle system. I will choose here and reduce the value for the number. For now, I will put 50. Then I will select the object in the render option and click on the eyedropper tool in the object option to select this object. I added the leaf to the particle system, causing the leaves to be distributed across the mesh as particles. Now I will increase the number of leaves to 100 or 120. Then to give the leaf a more natural look, I will increase the scale randomness value and slightly adjust the scale value as well. This part is complete. Now I will repeat the same steps for this curve path. Since I am repeating these steps, I will fast forward the video from here. This part is also complete. Now I will select the leaf and press H to hide it. Now I am going to start designing a gaming chair. In the last video, I designed an office chair. If anyone wants to watch that class, they can click on the link above, or I will add the link in the description. First, I will move the 3D cursor to the word's origin and add a plane. I will scale it down slightly in the edit mode and rotate it 90 degrees. Now I will add an edge loop using Ctrl plus R and select one side of the face to delete it. Now I will go to the modifier tab and add a mirror modifier and select the y-axis. Then I will add a solidify modifier and increase the thickness value. For now, enter any value that seems suitable to you, as we can adjust this value at any time. Now I will add a subdivision modifier and set the level to 2. If I go into edit mode, you will notice the editable plane is on the back side. I want it on the front, so I will make the solidify modifier thickness value negative. Next, I will add 2 edge loops on this side and 3 edge loops on the other side. Now you can set the thickness value as needed. In edit mode, I will select these 2 vertices and move them up along the z-axis. Then I will select these 2 vertices and move them forward. Finally, I will select this vertex and move it forward along the x-axis. Once done, I will go to the object mode, right click and select shade smooth. Now I will add an edge loop here to make this area sharper. Next I will select these vertices, enable proportional editing and move them along the y-axis to this side. Before that, I will enable the clipping option in the mirror modifier to fix the issue at the center. Now I will select these faces, proportional editing enabled, and move them forward to add a curve to the back of the chair. Next I will add a plane, go into edit mode and scale it down slightly. I will use this to create the seat of the chair. I will select these two vertices and scale them down on the y-axis, then set the seeds placement. After that, I will add a solidify modifier and adjust the thickness value. Then I will apply a solidify modifier and set the levels to 2. Now I will add 2 edge loops on this side and 2 edge loops on the other side. I will slightly increase the thickness value. Then I will right click and apply shade smooth. I will add one edge loop here and another one here. And after selecting both edge loops, I will scale them along the y-axis. Similarly, I will create edge loops on this side, select them and scale them along the x-axis. Now I will select these vertices and with proportional editing enabled, I will scale them down along the y-axis. Then I will select these faces, duplicate them using Shift+D and separate by pressing P. After moving them slightly to the side, I will add a solidify modifier. I will select these vertices, move them upwards, adjust the thickness and apply the solidify modifier. Now I will add an edge loop in the center. Then I will add a mirror modifier. Select the seed as the mirror object and choose the y-axis. After that, I will add a cylinder for the part under the seed and set the vertices to 12. I will scale it down and move it to the center of the seed. To do this, first I will select the seed, right click and choose origin to geometry. Then I will press Shift+S and select cursor to selection. After that, I will select the cylinder and press Shift+S again to choose selection to 3D cursor, which will move the cylinder to the center of the seed. Now I will move it slightly down along the z-axis and scale it down. Next, I will go into edit mode, select the top face, press I to inset and then E to extrude. I will inset the face again and extrude it once more. I will add a subdivision modifier to this and then add supporting edge loops. I will set the levels to 2 and then shade smooth it. Next, I will select the bottom face, press I to inset, then use Shift+R to repeat the inset action. Remember, Shift+R repeats the last action. I will press the slash key to exit isolate mode and slightly change the position of the chair. Then I will select this part, press the slash key to enter isolate mode again, select the top face, press I to insert it, and I will also add edge loops in those areas. I will add a cube for the chair legs and scale it down. I will adjust the scale along the Z and X axis and position it accordingly. I will also scale it down along the Y axis to match the proportions of this part. I will add a subdivision modifier to it and set the levels to 2. In edit mode, I will add an edge loop here and bevel it using Ctrl+B. Similarly, I will add another edge loop here and bevel that as well. Then I will add one more edge loop at the center. After that, I will apply shade smooth. Now I will go into edit mode, enable X-ray mode and move these vertices down along the z-axis. Then I will enable proportional editing, select these vertices and scale them down along the y-axis. Now I will shift right click to move the 3D cursor here. To design the wheel, I will add a cylinder, rotate it 90 degrees, scale it down and move it to the wheel's position. After adjusting its scale, I will go into edit mode and add an edge loop here. Then use Ctrl+B to bevel it. Next, I will select the newly created edge loops and bevel them again with Ctrl+B. Pressing Alt+E, I will extrude along the normal and extrude inward. Now I will select these side faces, press I to inset and once again extrude them inward using Alt+E and extrude along the normals. After that, I will add a subdivision surface modifier and set the level to 2. Then apply Shade Smooth. Next, I will select these side faces and press I once to insert them. For the top part of the wheel, I will select these faces, duplicate them and press P to separate them. Then I will scale it along the y-axis to match the wheel. After that, I will add a solidify modifier and set the thickness value. I will move the solidify modifier above the subdivision modifier and increase the thickness value. Then I will apply the solidify modifier and move the wheel along with this object slightly downward. In edit mode, I will select the two center faces and extrude them. After that, I will press Ctrl+R to add an edge loop here. I will create 5 legs for the chair. To do that, I will press Ctrl+A on this leg to apply the transforms. Since we need the legs around this part, I will select this part, press Shift+S and choose cursor to select it. Then I will select the leg, right click and choose origin to 3D cursor, which will move the leg's origin to the 3D cursor. I will create an empty object which will be added to the 3D cursor's position. Then I will select the leg and add an array modifier from the modifiers tab. I will uncheck the relative offset and check the object offset. Then use the eyedropper tool to select the empty object. I will increase the count value. You might not see a difference yet, but as soon as I rotate the empty object along the z-axis, you will notice the change. Since I need 5 legs, I will set the count to 5. For the empty object's rotation, I will input 72 degrees. Because a full circle is 360 degrees and dividing it by 5 gives 72. This ensures equal spacing between all legs. We could have duplicated and rotated the objects manually, but using the array modifier have advantages because any changes made later will apply to all legs. I will scale the objects up a bit. Now I need to rotate the wheel and its top part beneath each leg. To do this, I will first change the transform pivot point to the 3D cursor, which makes any object's rotation happen around the 3D cursor. I will apply the transform to both objects by pressing Ctrl+A, then right click and select origin to geometry. Now I will duplicate the objects by pressing Shift+D and rotate them along the z-axis by pressing R and Z and enter 72 degrees, which will rotate the objects around the 3D cursor by 72 degrees. As you can see, the objects are perfectly placed under the legs. Now I will press Shift+R to repeat the last action. I will keep pressing Shift+R until the wheel and its top parts are duplicated and placed under all the legs. Now I will rotate each wheel around its own origin to make the wheel's rotations appear more random. To do this, I will select individual origins as the pivot point. And then after selecting the wheels, I will rotate them around the z-axis. This will cause each wheel to rotate around its own origin. Now I will go into face select mode, select this face, duplicate it and separate it. Then I will move it along the x-axis. I will select these vertices, press S Y and 0 to align them along the y-axis, and do the same to align the other vertices. Similarly, I will select the vertices on this side and press S, X and 0 to align them along the x-axis. Next, I will add a solidify modifier and move it above the subdivision modifier. After adjusting the thickness, I will make sure the solidify modifier is properly ordered and then apply it. I will add an edge loop here and another one on this side. Then bevel it using Ctrl plus B. Next, I will insert an edge loop in the center. After that, I will select these faces and move them to the side to increase the handle's width. I will select the central vertices, enable proportional editing, and move them upward along the z-axis. I will scale down slightly and scale up a bit along the y-axis. Then using Shift plus S, I will set the cursor to the selected position. I will press Shift plus A to add a cube. Then apply a subdivision surface modifier and insert sporting edge loops. I will set the labels to 2 and use Shade Smooth with the right click. I will select these vertices and move them downward along the z-axis. I will scale this part down slightly. Then I will select edge loops, right click and choose dissolve edges. To make the shape a bit rounder. After that, I will select the vertices again and move them down on the z-axis. I will move this edge loop upward. I think it would be best to add a sporting loop here. Next, I will select these faces and extrude them. Then add sporting edge loops on both sides. Afterward, I will insert a center edge loop on both sides. Now I will add a mirror modifier to this object and select the seat as the mirror object. The issue is occurring because the transforms were not applied to this object. I will delete the mirror modifier, select the object, press Ctrl plus A and apply all transforms. Now if I add the mirror modifier again and select the y-axis, the mirror modifier will apply correctly. I will select these objects and move them along the x-axis. Then I will select all parts of the chair. Click on the empty object last, press Ctrl plus P and choose the object option to make all the parts parented to the empty object. Now when I select and move the empty object, the entire chair will move. I will set the position of the chair accordingly. Now I will add a cylinder for the table legs and scale it according to the table leg size. In edit mode, I will add an edge loop and select this face loop. Then press Alt plus E to extrude along normals. I will press Ctrl plus 2 to apply 2 levels of the subdivision modifier and then add sporting edge loops. After that, I will right click and shade smooth. I will press Shift plus D to duplicate it and place it here. Then duplicate it again and place it on the other side. Now I will apply materials to all the objects. I want to keep the scene colorful, so I downloaded some light color codes from Google that I will use. I will use this blue color for the table. I will select the table, create a new material, and input this color code in the value. When I enable material preview mode, you will be able to see the blue color on the table object. Now I will select all the parts of the table to which I want to apply the same material. After selecting all the parts, I will select the one that already has the material applied as the last one and then press Ctrl plus L to open the link data options where I will choose link material. This will apply the blue material to all the selected parts. I will also rename the material. Now I will add material for this subject. I will create a new material, rename it, and then input this color code into the material. After that, I will create a new color for this part as well. Rename it and add this green color code to it. In the material settings for this part, I will select the same material. To apply material to the leaves, I will press Alt plus H to unhide the leaf object and apply this green material to it, which will apply the green material to all the leaves. Now I will select the screen stand and create a new material, then rename it. I will add the pink color code to it. After that, I will select all the parts where I want to apply this pink color and finally select the stand, press Ctrl plus L and choose link material, which will apply the material to all the selected parts. Since I want to add a black material to the screen, I will create a black material. In edit mode, I will select the screen faces. Actually, by mistake, I applied all the modifiers and saved the file. I intended to test the modifiers without saving, but when I close it, I accidentally saved the file. So now all the modifiers are applied. Since the subdivision modifiers are applied, I will need to select all the faces of the screen. When we click on one face and then while holding Ctrl, click on the second face, all the faces in between will be selected. After selecting all the faces, I will choose the black material and click Assign, which will apply the black material to the selected faces. In the same way, I will create a material for the chair. Using link material, I will apply the material to the seat. I will assign the pink color to the side part using the same method with link material. I will also assign the pink material to the legs and handle parts. For the wheels, I will apply black material to the one wheel. Then I will select all the others with the last selection being the wheel with the already applied black material. I will press Ctrl plus L and link the material. I will select the leaf and press H to hide it. I will also apply the pink material to the outer part of the keyboard. Now for the keys, I will create a new material and add this color code to it. I will assign different colors to some keys. For that, I will go into edit mode, hover the mouse over the key I want to select and press L to select the entire button. Similarly, I will hover over another button and press L to select that whole button. Then I will choose the already created blue material and click Assign. Now I will select the space bar, create a new material, choose the pink material and click Assign. After that, I will select these four keys, create a new material, choose the material and click Assign, which will apply the material to the selected four keys. And for this object, I will assign this material. Now all the objects have their materials applied. I will now move towards simple rendering. First, I will press Shift plus S to move the cursor to the world's origin, and then I will add a plane and scale it up to create the ground. I will create a new material and assign it any color. I will assign it a greenish color. When I enable the rendering preview right now, this is the result. I will add an HDRI for realistic environment lighting. For that, I will go to the world setting, click here, select environment texture, then click open and navigate the Blender's default HDRI location and double click it to add. We can also increase the strength value from here. Now I will change the render engine. I will select the Cycles render engine. I will decrease the strength value. Whatever we render will be done from the camera view. By selecting the camera and pressing the 0 key on the numpad, I can see the camera view. Keeping the camera selected, I will move it to the required position. You can also move the camera by pressing G and rotate it with R. Now I will go to the output options and set the resolution to 1K by 1K. I can press G and double Z to move the camera forward. I can also change the camera's focal length. Then by pressing G and double Z, I will zoom out the camera view a bit, meaning I will move the camera slightly backward. Once I have required view, I will click on render and then render the image. After the image is rendered, you can save it. I hope you understood this class well. I tried my best to explain every step clearly. However, if there is any point I did not explain properly, feel free to ask any question. We will meet in the next class with a new tutorial. Until then, goodbye and take care.